The Twilight Zone is one of the most iconic shows in television history. But behind the eerie music and unforgettable imagery was a constant struggle to keep it on the air. Rod Serling used science fiction to outsmart television censors, low-budget tricks that delivered iconic visuals, and bold casting that shaped unforgettable characters, all while taking creative risks that turned a struggling show into one of the most influential series in television history. Before it became a classic, it was seen as too strange, too risky, and almost didn't survive. This is a true story behind The Twilight Zone. For 5 seasons, from 1959 to 1964, a television series dared to probe the human condition. Each week, it offered deep psychological exploration in an unsettling format. At the heart of this unique series was Rod Serling, an extraordinary writer, a decorated war veteran, and a visionary who relentlessly promoted thought-provoking television. Serling envisioned a show that could bring profound truths into American living rooms, disguised as mere genre entertainment. Serling believed television could do more than entertain. It could make people think. With his signature gravitas, he became our narrator and guide, leading us into the middle ground between light and shadow. This was a place where the rules were different, and reality often changed. We know Rod Serling as the eloquent host who effortlessly presented strange stories. But behind that calm demeanor was a relentless, often frustrated fighter. The Twilight Zone was, in many ways, Serling's last stand. His personal rebellion against a television industry he felt was stifling genuine art. By the late 1950s, Serling was a successful Emmy-winning writer. However, his success came with significant limitations. Network censors and corporate sponsors, who had immense power back then, routinely gutted his scripts, stripping away social commentary. His frustration eventually boiled over. "I want to write about what I want to write about," he demanded. The genius of the Twilight Zone's concept served as a strategic way to offer social commentary, disguised as spooky stories. Serling realized that talking about Martians or robots allowed him to slip past censors who were extremely cautious about contemporary issues. His commitment to the series wasn't just intellectual, it was physical. Serling wrote a staggering 92 of the 156 episodes himself, a workload almost unheard of. He was known for living on coffee and cigarettes, working around the clock. Unlike many showrunners today, Serling was deeply involved in almost every part of the production. He often worked on set, frequently as an uncredited script doctor for other writers, making sure every line fit the show's unique tone. This was more than just a television show. It was his personal mission for artistic freedom. And yet, one of the most iconic parts of the Twilight Zone, that voice welcoming us to another dimension, was never part of Serling's plan. The original pilot featured a professional announcer, Westbrook Van Voorhis, whose voice CBS ultimately rejected for being too stiff. With deadlines looming and no better option in sight, Serling reluctantly stepped in. At first, he was uncomfortable on camera and never saw himself as a performer. But audiences responded so strongly to his poetic delivery and eerie calm that he kept the role, by accident more than ambition. Getting the Twilight Zone on air was a challenge in itself. Despite his celebrated status, his anti-censorship stance made him problematic. CBS was not originally seeking a thought-provoking show. They needed a low-cost program to fill the challenging 10 p.m. Eastern time slot on Friday nights. Serling's first pilot, The Happy Place, was deemed too dark and depressing by CBS. It depicted a future society where individuals over the age of 60 were sent off to the Happy Place, which was actually an extermination camp. Although Serling was extremely unhappy about the rejection, years later he would admit it could have never been sold to advertisers. His second attempt, Where Is Everybody?, a man alone in a deserted town, found a better balance between mystery and dread, finally earning approval. Even then, Serling's contract was demanding, requiring him to write the majority of the first season's episodes. The Twilight Zone's ratings were never stellar, fluctuating rather than dominating. It had a loyal but small audience, making it constantly vulnerable to network executives always looking for the next big hit. After its successful first 3 seasons, CBS abruptly dropped the show from its fall 1962 lineup. The reason? Failure to secure a full sponsor. However, the replacement show unexpectedly tanked. Desperate, CBS brought The Twilight Zone back mid-season in January 1963, but with a catch. They demanded an hour-long format. Serling argued against it, knowing his concise stories worked best when shorter. This forced expansion to stretch plots, leading to padded, less impactful episodes. It diluted the series' unique power and turned viewers away, contributing to its declining popularity. By season 5, The Twilight Zone returns to its half-hour format, but the damage was done. Ratings remained mediocre, and Serling was severely burned out. He'd written nearly 2/3 of all original episodes, was producing and hosting, all while battling network interference. In January 1964, CBS President James T. Aubrey, who preferred more traditional programming, officially announced the show's cancellation. While Aubrey cited budget and ratings, the deeper truth was Serling's exhaustion, his reluctance to fight for renewal, and a network that perhaps never fully understood the show's hidden brilliance. Beyond its initial concept and Serling's vision, The Twilight Zone developed a distinct style. Each episode was a self-contained play, typically with a small cast and a clear story. This approach was partly due to budgetary constraints. The first season's average budget was a mere $60,000, which meant they had to be extremely efficient. The show rarely relied on elaborate special effects. Instead, expertly used atmosphere, clever dialogue, and the power of suggestion to build tension. This lean production meant the writing had to be exceptionally strong, and it was. While Serling wrote most episodes, famous stories also came from Richard Matheson and Charles Beaumont. Matheson excelled at putting everyday situations into a creeping sense of dread and relatable worries, like in Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. Beaumont was known for darker, more unusual tales about identity and madness, like The Howling Man. Serling actively sought these talents, viewing them as vital partners who helped expand the show while keeping its core ideas intact. And then there was the narrator himself. Rod Serling's iconic monologues became as famous as the episodes, connecting reality and fantasy. What's not widely known is how carefully he worked on these philosophical themes. He spent hours in the recording studio perfecting his delivery for the precise rhythm and tone. The show's atmosphere was deeply ingrained in its sounds. While the iconic theme is instantly recognizable, the show actually had 2 main theme compositions. The first season featured a more unusual piece by Bernard Herrmann. Starting in season 2, the legendary unsettling clock theme by Marius Constant was introduced. This was a clear creative decision to better capture the eerie tone. Beyond themes, sound design was groundbreaking, often relying on unsettling silences and subtle background noise to build tension. One of the strangest detours came in season 3, with Cavender is Coming, a failed comedy pilot starring Carol Burnett. It was the only episode to feature a laugh track, and fans were baffled. Even Serling reportedly hated it. A key part of the show was its focus on ordinary people, everyday individuals. A salesman, a housewife, were put into extraordinary situations. This grounded approach made the strange elements unsettling and relatable, allowing viewers to project themselves into the characters' shoes. The Twilight Zone was a place where future famous actors got their start. and where established stars could show a different side of themselves. We all know William Shatner battling the gremlin, but the story behind that performance is fascinating. When Shatner filmed Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, he wasn't yet Captain Kirk. Director Richard Donner specifically pushed Shatner to increase his fear. The filming was physically demanding. Shatner was kept off balance, giving a little warning for loud noises. Donner reportedly told him, "I want you to be absolutely terrified." This pushed Shatner to a frantic energy that became his signature, a trait he admitted was amplified by the Twilight Zone experience and carried over to his famous role as captain of the Starship Enterprise. Many other future acting legends appeared in Serling's series with surprising backstories. Take Robert Redford, for example. He appeared in Nothing in the Dark as a kind, otherworldly figure who helps an elderly woman accept death. This was a very early, pre-stardom role, and was a strong contrast to his later rugged persona. Another unexpected face was Charles Bronson. Before he was famous for his revenge-fueled shootouts and tough guy roles, he starred in Two, a quiet post-apocalyptic story with almost no dialogue. Instead of playing a hardened character, Bronson delivered a restrained, surprisingly tender performance, miles away from the vigilante roles that would later define him. In an era before computer graphics, creating the Twilight Zone's fantasy elements required cleverness and practical effects. Most of his chilling moments came from smart stagecraft and improvisation, often because of tight budgets. This need for creativity became a hallmark of the show, leading to surprisingly effective illusions. In To Serve Man, the imposing Canamitz carried a strangely ordinary book. There were no special effects, just a large, simple prop. But that simplicity made the twist hit even harder. When the title is finally translated, we learn it's a cookbook. One of the most demanding episodes for effects was The Invaders, starring Agnes Moorehead as a woman battling what appear to be tiny alien intruders. The crew used oversized props and small wire-rigged models to create the illusion. Moorehead, later known as Endor on Bewitched, performed the entire episode alone, reacting to enemies that weren't there. It's a masterclass in suspense built from simplicity. Even the famous Gremlin from Nightmare at 20,000 Feet was built on limitations. The flimsy creature suit struggled in wind and rain effects, but clever lighting and camera angles made it menacing. Shot on a fake airplane set at night, the rough puppet became iconic, proof that atmosphere can overcome budget. Cleverness also extended to basic filmmaking. Directors used unusual camera angles, stark lighting, and deep shadows for psychological unease, rather than expensive explosions or elaborate creatures. Lack of budget forced increased creativity, pushing the crew to invent solutions that made the show unique and effective. Though its original run concluded over 6 decades ago, the Twilight Zone's influence is immeasurable. It didn't just entertain, it completely changed how stories were told on television. It showed that a strong idea, well produced, could be more powerful than grand special effects. Its core elements are found in countless films, series, and video games today, often with a disturbing idea and a surprising twist. Rod Serling's dedication to stories that explored complex moral issues and made people think, all within popular entertainment, was groundbreaking. He proved that television could be a powerful way to explore philosophical questions and comment on society, inspiring viewers long after the credits rolled. The Twilight Zone asks us not to watch, but to question, to think, and to consider the vast, unexplored parts of the human mind.